Hi, so I'm going to do a little video about my final project plan and outline. So I'm going to start by going over, a few findings from my personal assessments, because that's probably how I'm going to start my video project. So first ones that I picked out that I want to talk about are, so some of the findings that I had were, one was the assessment for my use of social media, and I found that I actually do feel disconnected from my friends when I'm not logged into social media, and social media does play an important role in my social relationships. I actually was surprised to hear this, and I decided to delete the Instagram app to see how it would affect how I feel and affect my interactions with my friends. And it actually did make me feel really disconnected when I didn't have access to social media for that long of a time. I felt like people didn't know what was going on in my life, and I felt like I was just sort of detached from everyone. So that was a revelation for me, and it was sort of awakening and showed that I need to, establish my relationships in more powerful ways than social media. Another assessment that stuck out to me was when I found out so I actually was ranked that I'm not very confident that I can socialize with locals in a culture that is unfamiliar to me. I tend to, and that makes sense, I tend to get nervous, like that I'll embarrass myself even if I speak the language. Like, I speak Spanish but not perfectly, but if I'm immersed in a culture that just speaks Spanish, I tend to become more introverted and sort of shy, and I try not to communicate too much. So I guess that lowered my intercultural communication competence. That was one that stuck out to me. So yeah, that was that one. And something that I found about my online and offline self-disclosure in an assessment was that I actually really infrequently make posts at all, and I don't make posts about myself, and I don't even talk about myself much face to face, and I don't usually talk myself for fairly long periods of time. So those were some of the standout things from that assessment that were consistent with what I thought about myself. So that was cool. Okay, so my empathy quotient assessment was actually super interesting, and I found that I am actually pretty empathetic, which makes sense. I tend to, if I see someone else hurting, it generally makes me hurt too, and I always try to put myself in other people's shoes when they're suffering through something, and then it causes me to expect the same, if it's the other way around. So yeah, these are some examples of assessments that stuck out to me. Overall, through all the assessments, it's always very interesting for me to rank myself, and sometimes have other people ranking me, to just see where, what I actually think of myself and what is reality, because a lot of times you can have a perception in your mind that's not necessarily always consistent with what you'll find when you actually test yourself for certain qualities. So I'm pretty happy with everything. It was definitely eye-opening to delete Instagram and sort of see how I reacted to that, and definitely a catalyst for that deleting of Instagram was one of these assessments, and it's actually caused me to talk to my friends more through texting or FaceTiming or in person, so I don't feel as dependent on social media. And tying in with that, one of the best projects for me was logging the social media usages and what we did with each time we used a form of social media. It caused me to become a lot more aware, and I think overall I've just become a lot more used to making each click on something intentional, and so that is that. And overall, there are a lot of things I'm going to be able to apply to my personal and professional life, especially some of the things, because my hopeful career in human resources, I'm going to be dealing with people a lot, and interpersonal communication is a huge part of that. So yeah, there was I would say that my favorite topic was during week 4, a TED Talk that we watched, and it was talking about questioning our nature of perceiving messages and what can influence our perception, and using perception checking. And I really enjoy the assignments where we have to take a step back and think more about our responses to situations where we are assuming a potential worst case scenario. So then I'm going to conclude it. And yep, that is going to be it, and it'll be all a lot smoother once I do it in a put together video, but that's sort of like the outline of my thoughts.